Hello everyone and welcome to another art session with me, Mr. Richardson. This will be for my grade 1 students. Now this project will go over 2 weeks. Your first week of activities will be about printmaking, and then the second week will be about creating a sculpture with your prints on the paper. Now this particular sculpture that you're going to create is based on an American artist called Alexander Calder. Now he loved to create ginormous sculptures out of metal, but he also made smaller sculptures like mobiles that dangled from the ceiling. And they were kinetic sculptures, so they tended to balance and move on their own accord. It was all very interesting. Where his larger upscale sculptures that he would create looked like they kind of had legs, which is the one that we're going to be making today. So for this activity you will need some coloured paper, and if you don't have coloured paper you can do this with some plain printer paper as well. You will need a pair of scissors for later on for your second part. You'll need a grey pencil, some cardboard, some thin cardboard from a food box, a paintbrush, and if you've got paint you can use either white, black or your primary colours, so blue, red and yellow paint. Or if you haven't got any acrylic paint, then you can do the texta option. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the first part of this activity, which is to do some printmaking. Now, as I said, you can either use coloured paper or you can use just plain paper, whatever you've got at home. So to start off with, you want to be able to make your stamp. Now with this cardboard, you want to think about just some plain geometric shapes. So geometric shapes are ones that you learn about in class. So think about triangles, circles, squares, rectangles, anything else that you can think of. I'm going to keep it fairly simple to start off with. I don't want to make it too big. So I'm just going to cut a rectangle. And then I'm going to be clever about it and use my pencil. I'm just going to draw a triangle in the middle of that rectangle there. Now you might be wondering, what are these bits on the side here? They're going to be the handles that I'm going to hold the stamp with. So I'm just going to crease it that way first, because it's easier to push it forward rather than back. And then I'm going to flip it over, because I've already made those creases, so it's just easy to flip it over. Make sure you squish it with your fingers to get a nice crisp edge. Now I want to do it so the handles are this way, so the shiny part of the cardboard is on the bottom. Okay, really important that the shiny part of the cardboard is on the bottom, especially if you are using textures. If you're using paint, it probably doesn't matter so much. So, if you're using textures, you are going to colour all over that whole surface, just like I'm showing with your finger. Once it's all coloured in, press it onto the paper, repeat the process. Colour, stamp, colour, stamp. However, I'm going to show you the painting option. And it's pretty much the same. So think about what colour paint you're going to use on this paper. So I've got red. I don't want to use red paint because otherwise that's going to blend in too much. I'm going to use something that's going to contrast. Contrast means it's going to really stand out. So think about light and dark. I'm going to use white because it's going to stand out really well on my red piece of paper. Alright, so painted that triangle part there, got my handles, so then I can then press flat and then lift off. And you keep repeating the process to fill up the page with as many of those shapes as you want. So there is my set of 16 white triangles on my piece of red paper. So of course you'll need to let that dry before we can continue on to the second part of this activity. So you might like to do another piece of paper with different prints on it. So give it a go with 2 different sheets of paper and 2 different lots of colours and have a bit of a play around with that. So I've got red paper, white triangles. You might want to do black paper with rectangles, or white paper with blue circles put on with bottle tops. It's up to you what you want to stamp your shapes onto your piece of paper. All right, and then the next week you are going to create your sculpture with your dried piece of artwork. Okay, so stay tuned for the next part. Hey everyone, so after I had printed my 2 pieces of paper, and these are my 2 here, nice and dry, make sure that you don't go on to the next step until the paint on the paper is dried. Doesn't matter too much if you use texta because that will dry really quickly. So for the second part, you will need a pair of scissors and a glue stick and a grey lead pencil to create your Alexander Calder sculptures. Okay, so let me show you what's coming up next. Okay, so I've got my square piece of paper here. It doesn't matter if yours is rectangle, it'll still work just fine. So you flip it over, fold it in half from top to bottom. Now, if you have got an A4 piece of paper, you need to have it so it's portrait like this and then fold it like that. If it's square, it doesn't really matter. Make sure the edges and the corners match, hold the edge and then push towards the crease, the fold part, and then run your fingers along it so you get a nice crisp fold. Then unfold it, get your glue stick, and make sure you've got something underneath your work's surface here to catch all of the glue because you don't want to be gluing on top of the table. And cover one half, so one of these halves here, completely with glue. So not just around the edges, but it has to be the whole lot. All the edges and the gaps in between. All right. And put the lid on my glue stick. Okay, once that's done, you're going to fold it back over again and squish it carefully flat, making sure that you don't trap any air bubbles. So if you find any air bubbles are trapped, just sort of peel it open and just run your fingers to push them out. So it should be completely flat and no bubbles. So, next part, wipe this glue stick off. Okay, next part is you're going to fold it in half again. So match the edge and then press the edge down. So it essentially looks like a book cover. Okay, and the pattern is on all the sides there. Now, this next part is kind of tricky and you'll need your pencil for this. Think of the parts of your body. So, and it's the same applies with a book. The book has a spine. You have a spine right down the middle. You have legs. A book does not have legs. However, this sculpture does. Let's start from the spine here. I'm going to leave a little gap. I'm going to just draw a wavy line to the other side. So it's kind of like a very skinny S. Very skinny from the top to the side. Leaving that little gap there. The next part, you need to think from the bottom up that there is going to be legs coming up from the bottom here. And they don't have to be straight legs. They can be kind of curved. They can have feet even. So I'll start from the bottom. I'm going to give them a little foot. And I'm just going to go here and leave a gap. Really important that you leave a gap. I'm then going to start from near the spine again. down. So I'm going across and then down. Really important that you don't touch this side here, because otherwise you're going to end up with lots of little pieces. I'm going to start from the bottom again. And off to the side. I'm going to do one more, and that's just going to go here. One little line. Okay. Now, I'm going to start from the top part. I'm going to cut this top part here off. I don't need that bit. I want a nice rounded part for my sculpture. The rest don't join to any other part. That way, they should all remain connected to the spine, the folded part. Okay, so don't snip all the way to the spine. I'm going to stop there. So with your cutting, put the paper right in the center of the scissor blades, hold your fingers on the paper off the table, and turn the paper using your fingers so that you can easily steer around the corner. And then this last little bit here. Okay. So I've got kind of a whole heap of different jangly legs here. Now this part, you're going to have a go at folding away from the spine. And you can flip it over and do the same here. Have a bit of an experiment. It's not really a right or wrong way to bend these. You know, any way you want. However, the more folds that you have, the more you can twist it, and the sculpture should be able to stand up all by itself. Mine's still a little bit wobbly because the glue has made it a bit soft. However, ta-da! There is my sculpture with the legs. So have a play around and see what shapes you can cut upwards from the bottom towards there. They can be thick or thin, and if they're thicker, then they'll tend to be much more stable to stand up with. But cut up and across a little bit, but don't cut the spine. I'm gonna leave that intact. So there you have it, folks. Here is my Alexander Calder-inspired printed sculptures that I have created. So I did mine with red paper and white painted triangles, and I used some cardboard, the side of the cardboard rectangle, and painted some stripes on as well. So you can play around with whatever you have got at home, with bottle tops, cardboard pieces, any other little bits and pieces to make marks and prints on paper. And you can also play around with the shapes that you cut out too. So you can either fold it in half and cut the two sides together, or you can unfold it and cut out something that looks like a bunch of legs, a bunch of bananas maybe. Yeah, up to your imagination. Fold them, bend the legs, see how it will stand up, and it's your own very own sculpture. Alright, hope you had fun with that, and I will see you next time. Bye.